Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar entitled So You Want to Be a Music Major. I'm so honored to be joined today by my guest panelists. We have Dr. Kevin Davenport from Simmons College of Kentucky, Dr. Carrie Ann Simon from Mississippi Valley State University, Dr. Patrick Moore from South Carolina State University, Dr. Myron Brown from Winston-Salem State University, and Dr. Shonda Devine from Alabama A&M University. So we're pleased to have you here with us today. And before we get started with our actual segment, I'm going to ask each of my guest panelists to briefly introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their educational professional background and why they chose to major in music and become a music educator. So I will start in the order that I see them on my screen, starting with Dr. Kevin Davenport. You're on mute.
That better? Good. Good evening. I'm Dr. Kevin Davenport, originally from Portsmouth, Virginia. I hold 4 degrees currently, a bachelor's in music education from Tennessee State University, a master's in music education from Hampton University, and a specialist degree and an EDD in educational administration from Tennessee State. I have taught on all levels from elementary through college. I'm currently the chair of the music department at Simmons College and the director of college bands here as well. The reason I became a music major, I was that young man that did not have a father at home. Band became the first thing that I really learned some self-esteem in and decided that I wanted to give others what I had gained out of being in the band. And that's what led me to be a music major. I've had the privilege of doing work at 7 different HBCUs at this point. So I've been doing a lot of work at a lot of different places. Had a very successful high school band program in Portsmouth, Virginia, IC Norcom High School. I was there for 10 years. So music's been my life for a long time. I think that's about what I got.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davenport. Dr. Simon, if you please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose to become a music educator.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Carrie Ann Simon, and I'm originally from Memphis. I was in middle school band and high school band. Graduated Fairleigh High School in Memphis, went on to Mississippi Valley State University, where I teach now, and majored in music education. And I was one of those people, it was just in case I didn't make it as a professional clarinetist with the London Symphony, because that's what I thought I was going to be doing. And I went on to do my master's in curriculum and development, oddly enough, at Union University, because I thought I wanted to be an administrator. And it came to me in the middle of that degree that I would never teach again. Like I'd be stuck behind a desk. So I got a master's at Tennessee State in music education, and I went on to get my doctorate at Florida State University. So I chose to be a music major because another funny story, I wanted to be a brain surgeon. That's exactly what I wanted to do. And I did everything in high school to get ready for that. Like I took Latin for my foreign language. I did all the science, like all physics and chemistry. I did calculus. I did all of that to get ready. And my high school had a program for future medical professionals or whatever it was called. And we got to see an actual surgery. Like we were in the room, we were in the garb and everything. And it wasn't the blood that got me. It wasn't like the mushy stuff. It was the smell. I couldn't deal with it. And I was sitting there trying to figure out what in the world am I going to do with my life? Because I can't do that every day. Like that's just not going to happen. And a recruiter came from, where was he from? He was from UAPB. And he started talking about careers in music. And I was like, wait a minute. You mean I could play my instrument and be like, and make money, like feed my family with clarinet? He was like, absolutely. I was sold. So that was something like I would do that for free. I was sold, and that's how I got to be a music major.
Indeed. Thank you. Interesting story. Interesting story. Dr. Moore, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Patrick Moore. I'm currently the Director of Bands and Percussion here at South Carolina State University. I am actually from West Memphis, Arkansas, and I actually grew up playing in Memphis, Tennessee, at Isaac Hayes clubs and at BB King's clubs, playing percussion and drumming. And also I've done some recording record stuff with Stax Music Records in Tennessee, and done some traveling and performing with them as well with a few of those guys. I did my undergrad at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. I did my master's in music and percussion performance at Texas Tech University, and completed my doctorate at Abilene Christian University in ed leadership, with a minor aspect with music as well. What made me want to become a music major was I wanted to do something that I love doing all the time, in which I could make it a career. And I also I love teaching people how to do the things that I enjoyed and loved doing. So kind of the same thing when my high school band director really kind of showed me that I could make a career living out of being a musician, traveling, performing, and also getting to teach on the side. And it was something that just kind of came natural to me for doing. And so it was kind of pretty obvious that that was going to be my route, either that or I was going to be a lawyer, because I enjoy arguing, I love talking, and I love making the case to prove that I'm right. So when I got to college, they told me I couldn't study law and music. And after one semester of being a pre-law major and a music ed major, I realized I hated sitting in the library all day just reading books. And that was it. I wanted to just go play drums. I wanted to play the marimba. So it helped make my decision a whole lot easier for me to just go ahead and just say, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a full-time musician. I'm going to teach people to be a musician. And that made it great. And I had a great experience in my undergrad and graduate degree programs with being in band programs. And I've taught a lot of different high schools, drum lines, assisted with teaching different schools in all different kind of areas. And I've taught at PWIs and HBCUs, so I kind of have a background of teaching in both different areas, which I believe has made me a better educator, particularly seeing the aspect of how students have to receive assistance in both types of situations. And one of the good decisions, I think it's a great decision I ever made, was continuing to stay in music and to be a music educator today. And I've been teaching since 2011.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Again, interesting story. Dr. Brown, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Myron Brown. I am currently professor and chair of the Department of Music at Winston-Salem State University. I will give a brief story, as the other panelists have. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, where I earned my bachelor in piano performance from Birmingham Southern College. I went on to earn a master's in piano performance from the University of Houston. And finally, my doctorate of musical arts, also in piano performance, from the Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. From there, I found my way to North Carolina, where I've been since 2010. I always knew music was going to be a part of my life story, a part of my life journey. Music has always been in my family. My mother was a musician. Her sisters played piano. My grandfather, my father, my brothers. My uncle is my uncle is a pastor. So growing up in church, my mother was our first music director and minister of music. And the older and more mature I became, I gradually started to take on little bits of her role until I had completely replaced her. Fast forward to the end of high school, I went to college as a pre-med major on a piano scholarship. Took organic chemistry one summer and realized I don't need to double major. I need to focus on what my heart has always wanted to do. And that's exactly what I did. And one of the most thrilling experiences for me in undergrad was playing for someone who was pretty well known at the time, Miss Kathy Lee Gifford. And she told me a story that her father told her, which was find something you love to do and find a way to get paid for it. And for me, that was music. As one of our panelists stated before, if you had to do something every day for free for the rest of your life, what would it be? And for me, that would be music. And if you can find a way to make a career out of that, make it a healthy, well-rounded, and balanced career, then I'm all for it. So that is how I became a music major. And I am thrilled to now offer everything that I know to the next generation of music students. And hopefully they will go on and do even greater things than I've been able to achieve.
Thank you so much. Amazing, amazing. See how many of us wanted to be medical, professionals. Indeed. Dr. Divine, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shonda Divine. I was born in Queens, New York, but I call Atlanta, Georgia home. I'm raised in Atlanta, Georgia. I would like to ask your indulgence because I had the privilege of having my two nieces with me this week. And I think you might have caught a glimpse of them a few minutes ago. And they don't understand that, but I love them to life. So I told them if they need to come in, they need to come in. So I hope that's okay with you all. As far as my education is concerned, I do have a little bit of an interesting story, and I offer this to our students a lot because I feel like God put me here for a reason. I started at Alabama A&M University in the fall of 1994, but I decided instead of majoring in music, I wanted to major in socialite studies. So I didn't do too well and had to leave in the spring of 1995. Lo and behold, I returned in the fall of 2004. And 10 years later, and you want to talk about a humbling experience, being in a class with 18-year-olds and you're 28 years old. So I went through, graduated with the bachelor's in music performance and music education. And unlike most of you, I'm not an instrumentalist, I'm a vocalist. And my aspirations were to be an opera singer, which God has blessed me to still do to this day. After leaving A&M in 2009, I went to the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, and got my master's degree. I know that Dr. Brock went there as well. Got my master's degree in music performance. Came back after our chair, Dr. Horace Carney, who is still the chair, asked me to come back and take over the voice department. I taught at A&M from 2012 to 2015, when the dean at that time, who was Dr. Curtis Martin, and the provost, who is now our university president, Dr. Daniel Wims, asked me to go and get my doctorate. So I left A&M in the fall of 2015 and went to the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., where I completed a doctorate in vocal pedagogy. So it's interesting that you all talk about medicine because I've been blessed to be able to be in a field where I can combine music and medicine, really, because that's kind of the basis of my degree. And I would also like to, because I am a family girl, I want to take the time to mention that my brother Marcus, my sister Marissa, and my mom, Christine Brown, are all on this call right now. So I must be on my best behavior. And I believe that's why my nieces keep peering in because they see their dad, their dad's name on the screen. So I know it's a little bit laid back for me, but thank you for having me. I look forward to this discussion.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, I'm Dr. Tamisha Price Brock. I am, just thrilled to have been a part of music all of my life, growing up with quartet musicians in my family, choir directors, band directors in my family. I did not want to be a band director at first. I wanted to be a bone specialist and a bone surgeon, and I wanted to be a forensic scientist. I had a goal to, one, find a cure for rheumatoid arthritis, and then I was going to go solve cases as a part-time job. But just through mentorship and having solid music educators all my life, I decided that I wanted to pursue a music degree because I did not want anyone telling me how much time I could spend with the patient just to appease insurance policies. So I wanted to be able to give people care and educate people and provide a wholesome experience without not loving my job. So I received my Bachelor of Music Education in instrumental music from Virginia State University in 2005. I received a Master's of Music Education from Norfolk State University in 2011. And in 2020, I completed my PhD in music education with additional studies in educational research methodology from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I have about 19 years of experience teaching K-12 level. I've taught everything from elementary music to middle and high school band and choir at one point. And of course, I have 8 years of experience teaching in higher education, teaching music education courses, supervising student teachers, and preparing teacher candidates for their licensure exams. I am no longer teaching. I'm spending my time now full-time running my company, Prodigious Music Concepts, with the goal of certifying teachers and helping to diversify the workforce and to stamp out the teacher shortage, thus the presentation we have today. And I also own the HBCU Recruitment Center with the goal of supporting our HBCUs nationwide and bringing more students from the West Coast to our HBCUs as students. So we're going to move forward with our presentation. You see that we have a very diverse panel here representing instrumental music, vocal music, and piano studies. And I've diversified the panel for a reason, that we wanted to have a wholesome discussion that wasn't just band heavy, but gave you a true snapshot into what it really means to be a music major and to look at the total department, so that when you leave this call, you can share this with someone else, or you as an aspiring music major or a current music major can really affirm your decision to be in this field and decide where you want to go. And from our life experiences and the things that we've shared with you, hopefully you've been able to relate already to some of the things we've said, with maybe not wanting to major in music at first, but you were driven to music, you were called to music, or whatever happened, you ended up being a music major. So we want to share with you some things that's going to help you be successful, help you to persist in a major, and help you to strengthen our field as you progress. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first question to my panelists is, what does it mean to be a music major or to major in music? And with this, if you could elaborate on some of the various degree tracks, maybe throwing in some of the degrees that you offer at your university, but what does it mean when someone says, I want to major in music? Because this is the #1 misconception we have with a lot of our students coming into our programs. I'm going to start with Dr. Simon on this.
Hey again, everybody. So what does it mean to be a music major? So that's a very broad question. And I always answer it pretty much the same way with everybody, no matter what their track is. That degree means you are a professional musician. When you come out of that school with that degree, it says that you are a professional. You are an expert at what it is you do. And starting off, you have to, and as a teacher trainer, I also teach a lot of method classes at Mississippi Valley. I try and instill in them at the beginning, their freshman year, that you are training to either be a teacher, whatever your track is, like pay attention to your track. I have a lot of students also that get discouraged with not being able to pass the practice, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little later, but they get discouraged and they switch to a performance degree. Well, all of those degrees say something. If you're going to be if you're going to do the education track, you're training to be a teacher. If you're doing the performance track, you're training to be a performer, which also means if you're training to be a performer, you're a professional performer. You're a professional clarinet player. You're a professional trumpet player, which means you need to have all of your fundamentals down. If you know you don't want to stay in the practice room all night, you should not be a performance major, because that's what that degree says. I've seen a lot of students make the mistake of doing that performance major and they graduate and go work at Walmart. Like, you could have done that straight out of high school. Don't do it to yourself. Pay attention to what track you decide to choose and make sure you work toward that track. In Mississippi Valley, we don't have a lot of tracks. I know at some of the schools I attended, they had, like, you could do a gospel music track. You could do music business, entrepreneurship, producing. They get into all different kinds of tracks. But the other panelists will talk about other things too, so I don't want to take up the entire time. But my suggestion is, if you decide to be a music major, pay attention to the track that you follow. Do what that track tells you that you're supposed to do. That way, when you graduate with your degree, with your professional degree, you're actually a professional in your field.
Thank you. Dr. Brown, could you elaborate as well? What does it mean to be a music major? And if I'm telling this to my friends, what am I saying? What am I declaring that I'm trying to do?
Well, if I can indulge you for just a moment, if I could actually start with what it does not mean to be a music major, and this is what I often have to remind students of. Being a music major does not mean I played in the band in middle school, I sang in the choir in high school, I make beats on the laptop with my cousin, I just love music, I want to do music as a major. it takes a whole lot more than talent and passion to be a music major. While our discipline is one that's also considered a form of entertainment, we have to be careful that we're also mindful of the academic rigor and the discipline. The most talented person can have a performance and bum because they didn't spend time practicing. That goes for conductors, composers, the whole 9 yards. So getting back to the question asked, what does it mean to be a music major? As it was stated previously, you are probably someone who wants to pursue a career in music, a professional career in music, which could come many ways. It can come through an apprenticeship, it could come through a family line that's passed down, or it can come through a university. When you commit to pursuing a career in music through a university, there are certain standards that are non-negotiable. And one of those is literacy. You must be able to read music, and you must be able to read it fluently, point blank. People are going to understand that you have a broad understanding of music history, of music theory, and connecting the dots of various genres. You may not be a jazz saxophonist, you may not be an opera singer, but you should at least understand some of the broad topics as it pertains to music. And, you know, when someone approaches you with a professional opportunity, we're hoping that most music programs are broad enough that you should be able to take on that opportunity and have confidence that you can do it well and represent your university in a good light. At Winston-Salem State University, we offer the Bachelor of Arts degree, which is considered a liberal arts degree as opposed to music education, a Bachelor of Music or a Bachelor of Music Education, which are considered professional degrees by the National Association of Schools of Music. But with the Bachelor of Arts versus the Bachelor of Music, those degree programs give a little bit more flexibility for students who might want to pursue a double major or who want to pursue a minor. Now, with the Bachelor of Arts, we offer optional concentrations in music business and in music education. So we will prepare our students for careers teaching in the classroom, teaching in private studios. We will prepare them for work with artists and labels and record companies, production, the whole 9 yards. And of course, everyone should have the basic skills to perform. And if so, many of our students go on to pursue graduate programs in music.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Would any of my other panelists like to add to this question? And I'm going to add to it so we can dive into our next question and we'll circle back around. So while you're talking about what does it mean to be a music major, let's also add our second question. What experience or general knowledge should I have before entering college as a major? What should I have gained in elementary, middle, or high school? We know we have some late starters, so we don't want to hold that against the student. But I want to be a music major. What does that mean? And what should I know prior to coming to your program in order to be successful? Dr. Devine?
If I could just tailor a little bit of my statement to the end of the prior question, and I may come from a different perspective, and maybe that's because at this time, Mr. John Q. Leonard is on the call, the president of the university. Actually, we're in the midst of writing commercial music, sacred music, and music theater concentrations at this current juncture. Alabama A&M, prior to this, we offer performance, education, business, piano pedagogy, and general music. And I want to say something, and it's a Bachelor of Music. I want to say something about wanting to major in music. What I have noticed just from being in this industry over 25 years is that, just like Mary McLeod Bethune said, education is a forward-moving vehicle and things change. One thing for sure, yes, you do need to know how to read. You need to be literate. Like I said, my family is on this call. My mother, Christine Brown, can attest to some of the challenges I had getting to some of the bigger conservatories and music programs out of high school because of being musically illiterate. And it weighed against me. But what I also want to say is, while you do need to have the spirit of investment, we also, in my opinion, as educators, especially those of us who are collegiate educators, I feel like we should broaden our scope a little bit. Some of these kids, yes, they are making beats on their laptops and such. However, there are industry tools like Pro Tools, Logic Pro, commercial music programs, which is what I'm writing right now. And I would much rather, for those people who do want to go that way, there are schools like Full Sail and Art Institute and such, but a lot of them do not emphasize the basics. So my opinion is to get it a little bit wider because our scope is changing. The students are changing. The type of student we have coming into music programs are changing. And while it's important to have those traditional values and those traditional aspects rooted, I feel like we got to open up a little bit. But I'm sorry, you said can you repeat that again?
In addition to wanting to be a music major, what should they know coming into the program from the elementary, middle, or high school level? What should they already have in order to be successful coming into the program?
Like so many of you, I taught K through 12 as well. I forgot to mention that. And one thing I do recommend is basics in piano, keyboard skills. No matter what your instrument is, when you hit fundamentals of theory or theory 1 or whatever the case may be, instrumental courses, methods courses, you need to have that keyboard. At least know what the keys are, what they stand for, know your musical alphabet, for lack of better words. You are correct. Some of them come in. I've seen people who do not know what lines and spaces are. And I was under the impression from being a K through 12 teacher that this is something that was done in elementary school, because that's something I taught in elementary school and something I learned going to a Catholic and a Lutheran school as a child. So, those things are important. In addition to that, a lot of us are involved in church programs and such. And while there is a very, very big debate on, should you know how to read? Is it okay to learn by, to have ear? I support the theory of having both, to be honest. Being musically literate for a while, when I became musically literate, I was so diehard against ear training or oral skills, but that is absolutely necessary as well. I believe you need to have a firm grasp on both. So really and truly, if you can, and if you can afford it, and if you can be exposed to it, I believe that instrumental exposure is very, very important, especially strings and brass and woodwinds and even percussive instruments. One thing I do warn against, be careful about your vocal instruction at an early age, because vocalists really do not need to be in vocal programs before a certain age, but choirs are always great. I've been in the choir, I don't know, since maybe I was 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know, but I've been singing since before I could speak. But as far as formal instruction, I think that's in elementary school, just the general elementary music courses are good enough. Middle school, I believe a lot of people get introduced to instruments in middle school. That is a fantastic thing. General music courses are a part of a lot of music curriculum. And then some are doing without it. The arts are on the chopping block in a lot of places. So we don't get a lot of that exposure. But if you can, if we have to put it in order of importance, I would always say, learn the basics, the fundamentals, which you can find on apps like musictheory.net, which you get with your keyboard. We've got YouTube University, which is sometimes a scary and a sketchy thing, but it's to some degree, it does help to at least learn the names of the keys, learn your musical alphabet. Those things do help. And I know that every school has a different scale of what they want is knowledge coming in. So I don't want to say, hey, you should know this and that's it. But because some people are going to want more than others. But I do say those fundamentals, like your music alphabet, lines and spaces, your notes, if you can, your intervals, if you can pull up a hymnal. I know all churches don't have them anymore, but if you are at a church where you have a hymnal, if the line is going up, sing up. If the line is going down, sing on a down. Even if you don't get the notes or the pitches correct, try. And that's just me coming from a place of not being able to do that at first when I started as a music major.
Thank you so much. Dr. Moore, could you add to this? What does it mean to be a music major? If you want to add to that, what should we know coming into your program? And I'm going to go ahead and throw the third question in there. What entry-level requirements would be required to be accepted into your Department of Music? So I want to be a music major. Okay, you're telling me what I need to have to come in, but is this good enough for me to get accepted into your department? Dr. Moore?
Yeah, so I'll say, as far as what does it mean to be a music major, it means, just as Dr. Brown said, and Dr. Simon has said, that you are a professional musician. You're working to gain a much higher knowledge of music than what the common listener would be able to understand at any point in time. Having a true basic understanding of all the fundamentals of music is also very essential. One of the things that we offer music education and music industry here at South Carolina State. So we do get a lot of students who come in who kind of just want to make beats, even though I do tell them, you still need to know more than just making beats. We want you to, again, as Dr. Devine said, you need to know the note names. You know, A through what, you need to have some form of understanding of piano. Even being a percussion, one of the things I encounter a lot when I do percussion auditions is students, they just want to, I just want to play a snare drum. You know, as a percussionist, you need to understand how to play the full scope of all the percussion instruments. And mallets is one of those things. And a great way to get a great understanding of mallets is to play piano. And I attest, when I was in high school and even in middle school, because I can make so many more mistakes and be noticeable on keyboard, I shied away from that from the beginning at first, until I understood when I sat at a piano how much actual music I can make. And that really kind of got me with, what does a major chord sound like? What does a minor chord sound like? Or, you know, is this a perfect fifth, or is this an octave, or is this a diminished chord? And I started to like those things, which pushed me toward wanting to be a better marimba player. So one of the things we always, you know, I tell students, what you should have coming into college is at least try to have some type of a basic knowledge of the instrument or vocal area that you're looking to go into. Like I said, we live in an age now where there's so many more resources than what any of us could have ever dreamed about when we were younger, of trying to get an understanding of what we want to get into. So you can research it and look it up. You have to know that you're going to have to take music theory. You're going to have to learn the history of music. And there's so many things out there of untold history, particularly when we look into the Black culture of music that's not been presented. We just had the movie, Chevalier, that just came out, that people had no idea about composers of those eras. So there's so many interesting things that students can connect to. And I do my best to try to present all these things to students when they're coming in, or when they tell me that they're interested in being in music, so that they know exactly what they're getting into. We have a lot of students who think that, well, I'm just going to be a music producer right off the bat, but have absolutely no understanding of general concepts of music. And yeah, there's still the traditional things that you have to still understand and know. You have to understand time signatures. You have to understand tempo. You have to understand just sound in general. Knowing those basic things will help you kind of get started on the right path, and just being willing to learn and accept that there are going to be things that you're not going to know and different things that you're going to have to learn. Now, when it comes to level requirements of acceptance, we deal with a lot of students who come from low income, underqualified areas. And so we have to make a lot of different adjustments as far as the students that come in. Every student that we come in and that we audition is not going to know all 12 major scales, because they maybe come from a program that doesn't have the adequate resources, or even some of them don't even have teachers to stay there long enough to teach them all these type of things. So for us, we look for simple things of, are you willing to learn? Do you have some form of a basic knowledge of things? And we look for more of, what do we need to teach you, so we can know exactly what we need to start you at. So we can make sure that you have a great path. We understand that everybody's path is going to be completely different. So we don't expect every student coming in knowing a full list of things, but things I would say for students looking to be a music major that you should know: learn your scales, learn how to do something with piano. There are plenty of free method things out there. Go ahead and get into sight singing. Learn basic sight reading, understand basic rhythms and patterns, because no matter what your instrument is, whether instrumentalist or vocalist, you're going to have to learn how to read rhythms. You're going to have to understand tone. You're going to have to understand sound. And do research. Find many things online from multiple professors that do things on YouTube, and have many different pages in which you can always find all the resources that you need that's going to help you have a great introduction, so that when you start to work with that teacher that's considered a professional, you'll know exactly, you'll be on the right path to being successful and to being a good music major, whether that's going to be performance or whether that's going to be education.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Davenport, did you want to add to that as far as the requirements to get into the program, or things that students should look for or pay attention to as they're preparing to come in as a music major?
I want to kind of go actually back over some things that have already been said. I come from my bachelor's and my master's are both in tuba, which is different. But the thing that I don't care what instrument you play, you need to be prepared that you're going to take lessons on piano. And I think that's the thing that can be a shock to many students is they got to learn that keyboard. That keyboard is so important. And that I think that was the hardest thing for me to deal with coming in as a tuba major is that I had to take several years of piano. But as a professional, looking back, I really wish I'd have taken it that much more seriously. I passed it, but I wish I'd have taken it more seriously because it comes back up in your career at some point. That keyboard, having knowledge of that keyboard, first of all, it gets you through music theory much easier when you have a knowledge and a range on keyboard. It helps you develop your ear. At Simmons, we offer a Bachelor of Arts in Music Performance. We are currently also developing a track in worship music right now. But everyone that comes in are going to have to take the music theory courses. They're going to have to take the piano courses. They're going to have to take an series of instrumental vocal lessons on whatever the lesson is. One thing I tell all of my music majors is music is a put up or shut up profession. You can't talk your way through it.
Right about that.
So you got to learn in high school that learn to play your music, to a level that's acceptable and don't shy away from practice. That's the biggest problem that I see in college level students is they come in with no practice ethic, and it's a shock to them when they come in. They don't understand how many hours it takes to really develop on an instrument. We don't have a lot of high requirements to come in. If a student has a desire to major in music and really wants to put in the work, we will take them in. We require every student that comes into our program to take a fundamentals of music class before they ever enter Music Theory 1, just to make sure that they have that solid background. But of course, if you take the time to learn in high school before you come in, it puts you that much further ahead, being able to grasp the concepts. Just liking marching band or concert band is not enough. Let's be clear about that. Or choir is not enough. Being a music major is a whole nother level. You're trying to become a professional, the expert on that instrumental voice. There are expectations there that as a professor, we cannot let you pass unless you're hitting certain milestones. Particularly in a performance major, understand that your final capstone project is performing, and it has to be done on a certain level. So you've got to be ready to come in and practice. You've got to be ready to put the time in. As a private teacher, I don't want to hear the tap dancing. You got to come in and play. Okay, that's what you're going to do. So, you've got to take it very, very seriously from day one. If you do it from day one, it's going to be a whole lot easier for you. Come in with a passion and desire to make that instrument a part of your body, quite honestly, and want to spend as much time with it, more time with it than anything else that you do. Because as a music major, you're going to be spending time on that instrument or with that voice every day until you graduate. And you've got to take it seriously every day. Now, what was your next question? I want to see if I roll over into your next question.
That was it, into the entry level requirements for your department.
So what I would mainly say is come in knowing as many major scales as you can. That's going to make it easy for you. If you come out of a high school program that may do solo and ensemble festivals, concert band, get involved in as many ensembles as you can in high school. Because every chance you get to play in high school, get to read different kinds of music, different levels of music, take those opportunities. It's all going to make it easier for you when you get to college, because you're going to have to learn a wide variety of styles and genres of music. You can't be narrow-minded and get a degree in music. From the production side, as someone else said, you got to understand balance and blend and control and rhythm structure and all of that to really lay a good track down. You got to know all of that. You got to know the relationship between voice and instruments, the different timbres of the voices, of the strings, I mean, to be a producer, you need to know all of that and how they all blend together and how they all work to your advantage. So, you know, absorb as much music as you can. If you're considering being a music major in college, go ahead and start to really put yourself in all the music that you have, opportunities you have around you in high school. It's just going to prepare you better to go to college.
Indeed, thank you. And I'm going to get Dr. Brown and Dr. Devine to chime in on this in a second. But one thing I would like to address also, for those of you who are contemplating music education, and those of you who may be in one track music education, or you change your major and you think you want to go back to music education later because you change your major just to get out of school because you're having issues with the praxis, your teacher licensure exam. I want to stress this, and I've stressed this my entire career. Teaching is not a fallback. It is not a fallback. It is an important profession. We need quality teachers out here. There is a growing teacher shortage, and music is a part of that. And part of the turnover that Dr. Moore mentioned is because we get candidates in these positions as music educators who did not want to be there, or who do not have the staying power to endure the hard times, to endure the challenges, to endure the rigor that it takes to be dedicated to being on time to work, being on time to the profession. I will also say one thing you need to ask yourself that we're not having a conversation about when you say, I want to be a music educator. Okay, what level do you want to teach? Do you want to teach elementary, middle, or high school? But I always ask, do you like children? Because if you do not like working with children, if you do not have the patience to work with children or to work with others, you should not pursue a career in education, but more importantly, in music education. All of my colleagues on this call, even our guests on the call that have been in the field for a while, who have seen and supported music educators, can attest to the fact that when you sign up to be a music educator, you're signing up for even like people. You have to like people. But when you sign a contract or you commit to a life as a music educator, you are signing the dotted line, and for all the small print that comes with it: counselor, caretaker, mediator, support system. Your students are going to spend more time with you than they do with anyone else in the school for various reasons, because you are a safe haven, you are a safe place. They travel with you more, they trust you more. You tend to build a rapport with the parents and communities faster than the administrators and the rest of the teachers in your school or your department. So you have to ask yourself, if you're not willing to commit to this, if you don't like children, if you don't have the patience, if you're just doing this for a paycheck, I beg of you, be a music librarian, be a music critic, or something else. Teaching is not a fallback. Teaching is the profession of all professions. No matter what profession you had to have been taught by someone. So it's important that we take that with the prestige and the professionalism that it is. Music educators are definitely important, and is not a fallback, or is not something for you to do because you couldn't make it doing something else as a performer. This is something you have to have an earnest and conscious decision that you want to do education. Okay, Dr. Davenport, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, the main thing I want to add in going into music education is don't cheat students. If you're not willing to continually learn far beyond college, if you're not willing to continually, sharpen your skills, learn other instruments. I know one thing, as a middle school band director teaching 6th grade middle school band, I usually had 6 or 7 instruments out around me, because how could I expect them to produce a sound on a horn if I couldn't produce one myself? So you got to be willing to spread your wings and really start to learn, master your instrument, learn other instruments. Don't cheat students. If you just want to go into it for a paycheck, don't do it. You'll ruin a whole generation of students coming out of your school if you're not really willing to learn, really teach them what they need to know for life, not just to be a music major in college, but just to really be an educated musician.
Indeed. Dr. Brown and Dr. Devine, I wanted to bring you back in on this question because we filtered into the question on entry-level requirements. And I know we have mostly band directors on the call, but I wanted to know because a lot of the times, we have issues with fielding our strings program. I was trying to get a strings panelist up here, but I couldn't get one. But with piano majors, a lot of people think, well, oh, since I play for my church, I can easily get in as a piano major, or because I sang the solo every Sunday in my church, or because I sang around the home, or I sang for these functions and I've won talent shows that I can make it as a vocalist, or I want to do this, but I'm not willing to commit to the operatic singing or the classical training. So I'm going to start with Dr. Brown and then Dr. Devine come right behind him. Tell us from your standpoint, to be a piano major and a vocal major, what are the entry-level requirements to get into your program and what can they expect?
So I guess I'll go first. As a pianist, the entry-level requirements for any music program are going to vary based on whether it's an associate's, a bachelor of arts, or a bachelor of music, or a master's or a doctorate. It's also going to vary with the culture of the university and how competitive it is to get into the department. But in general, I'm not sure how many on this call may be high school students. In general, what you are going to be expected to do is demonstrate in a brief moment the range of your talent. You're going to be demonstrating several pieces of varying styles, something that can showcase your technical ability, as well as some of your more sensitive and musical nuance styles. You also are going to be expected to demonstrate your ability to sight read with little to no preparation. Often you have a piece of music placed right in front of you and you don't even get 60 seconds. It's here's something new, play. Scales and arpeggios may be a factor. And as Dr. Moore mentioned earlier, you don't know how many scales may be asked. I would encourage any college that you're interested in, I would encourage you to visit the music department website to see what their audition requirements are. But the more scales and arpeggios you can play accurately, the better. So I would definitely start with 1 flat, 1 sharp, work your way to 2 flats, 2 sharps, add the minors, even if you want to add the chromatic scales, because it's all going to add up in the future. And to speak to Dr. Brock's point earlier, you play at church, you sing solos at church. Those are all wonderful skills. I still play at a church every Sunday. And, with last week being Gospel Music Workshop of America right here in North Carolina, I think I performed 3 nights during that conference. But that's a totally different skill set that is necessary in the industry. However, it does not replace the fact that when you go into a bachelor's program specifically, you're going to be expected to be able to read. So at your audition, your faculty are going to expect you to play something that would demonstrate what you learned from printed material. Even if you're a jazz musician, you may be able to do some improvisation and play something off the cuff. But I think most schools are still going to expect you to play something traditional just to see where your technique and your reading is.
Can you go ahead, Tamisha? Dr. Brock?
Dr. Devine, go ahead.
Yes. I first wanted to say, you may see a screensaver that says iPhone Doug. That's actually Dr. Douglas Black, who is one of Dr. Brock's classmates and also is the lower brass instructor at Alabama A&M University. And he's also now the coordinator of music education. So I just wanted to give him his shouts out because I know that this will definitely have to do a lot with him. He's probably going to kill me now. But at Alabama A&M University, on the voice end, the majority of our majors come in through the choir. The choir is directed by Dr. Horace Carney, who also serves as our chair. So I'm not certain about other institutions. I think a lot of HBCUs kind of follow that, or from what I understand, a majority of HBCUs kind of follow that trajectory. I believe it's the same for instrumentalists. I think, right, Dr. Black? So I think that's the way it is for instrumentalists as well. We do have and have had in the past string majors. We don't currently have any, I don't think. Once again, that falls in Dr. Black's scope, but I'm just not sure. But I do know that, okay, he just told me we have 2 string majors. But yes, for the vocal program, what happens is most of the time they come in through Dr. Carney, our choir director. Now, when they get to me as the coordinator of voice, they sometimes call me the filter, because when I get you in my studio, we have a discussion. And this kind of piggyback or pinpoint something we said earlier. You liking music is not enough reason to major in music. Let me repeat that again for some of the people who might be on this call. If you like music, thank you, but that's not enough reason to major in it. Okay, majoring in it is a totally different thing than your friends who are majoring in biology and psychology and sociology. Yes, a lot of our answers are in the textbook, but my fellow musicians will tell you a lot of our answers are not. A lot of our answers are in the practice room. A lot of our answers are in applied music. A lot of our answers are in you doing the work. So while I did also say, yes, I'm a very big fan of commercial music, I'm also a supporter of you need to study. And that comes from a person, me, who didn't study at first. So I understood and finally grasped, yes, I do need to study to get this done. And that took me messing up the first time. And I honestly feel like God put me in that position to minister to some people, to get them to understand you have to work hard. But to get into Alabama A&M and to will actually be in my studio is consistency, because everyone doesn't start in the same place. I do have some very fundamental requirements. Please match pitch. Match pitch. If I play a pitch, be able to sing it back. Some of you are laughing. You would be surprised at what I have seen since 2012 when I started teaching on the collegiate level. Be able to match pitch, be able to sing an interval. You know, we do get a lot, and I'm sensitive to that because, like I said, I did not read when I came in to college, and I came out of a performing arts high school. So, you know, it was tough. But if the work ethic is there, I believe they can do it. I believe everyone should be given an opportunity. But once I extend that opportunity to you and you decide, I'm not going to do what it takes, you've made your decision. Another thing I want to say, as far as I'm concerned, music education, while I consider myself to be a performer, although I am a professor, music education is the cornerstone of all of this. Every person, even if you didn't major in music, my sister is on here, she's got a doctorate in biology and stuff, you know, you had a teacher that influenced you to be just that. My mom is a career social worker. She had a teacher that influenced her to be just that. Educators are integral to these kids going on and doing something else. So yes, Dr. Brock and everyone else, if you are not cut out for education, get out of the classroom because you are doing more harm than good. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
Indeed. Thank you so
Dr.
much.
Brock, can I add one thing?
You sure can.
So when it comes to the audition, I'm not sure if we really said this, but
That's
it
the next
is
question.
just that. It's an audition. It's not just a formality. At many schools, limit the amount of times you can audition. At Winston-Salem State, you get 2 audition attempts. If you fail your first attempt, the faculty will tell you what you need to improve on and when you can come back. If you fail a second attempt, we will tell you to choose another major. And with that, there are 2 caveats. The first is we don't require students to audition immediately upon entry to the university. Some students have waited to the end of their freshman year or maybe till the middle of their sophomore year for just the reasons that Dr. Devine mentioned. We have students who come into college not being able to read. So we put them in a fundamentals class, we put them in a piano class, we put them in band, we put them in trumpet lessons. And then within a semester or 2, or hopefully no more than 3, they are ready to play an audition with 2 contrasting pieces, scales and arpeggios and sight reading. So that's the one thing I like about the way we do it. Our curriculum is flexible enough that you can start with some music courses alongside your gen ed courses. On the flip side, I will say for music students who are maybe terrified of the audition process, practice, because there is the chance that faculty can say no. And if and when music faculty say, no, we do not accept you, I hope that students will take that not personally, but what we're doing is we are not looking at just that moment. As faculty, especially as a department chair, I'm looking 4 to 6 years ahead. I'm saying, does this student's current talent, potential, and dedication, do I see them crossing the stage in 4 to 6 years? Because an education is timely, it is costly, and it is stressful. And I want as many majors as I can get in my department. But more important than that, I want people who are whole. I want to make sure that students are making the right choice for them, and that 7 years later, they're not struggling to pass Theory 3 and complaining about having to pay back student loans and they still haven't found a job. So when we audition students, we are really looking and making sure you have what it takes. And if we don't see that potential as faculty, we're going to hopefully steer you into a different direction with love.
Indeed. Thank you so much. And now that leads to our next point. And for those of you on the call who are with us on Zoom or Facebook, if you are in need of professional development credits from this workshop, please put your email address in the chat and I will have your certificates to you by Friday. If you have questions throughout the or comments throughout the session, please place them in the chat and we'll fill them towards the end when we have our Q&A session. So if you have something you wanted to ask and don't want to forget it, please put it in the chat. We're going to go into our next two questions. I'm going to combine them two together because COVID put us in a situation where we went virtual for instruction, virtual for auditions. We had to be creative with restoring our programs, both instrumental and choral. And so students are now, we're still having schools that still accept video auditions as opposed to live auditions for convenience, and to also give students a better level of comfort. Some people may audition better if they can send in a video versus a live audition, or at least for their first audition. So the question is, how should I prepare for my live audition? And how should I prepare for my video audition? Is there a difference? What should I do? Some schools require that you have a raw, unedited video. Okay, which I know that used to be my requirement, is that it's unedited. I want to see you in raw form. Some people require that you have so many things on there that you say certain things. So again, the question is, how should I prepare for my live audition? And how should I prepare for my video audition? So I'll start with Dr. Simon and then I'll go around.
Okay, so auditions. It's an interesting subject. What I will say though, be prepared. I think that's the most important thing. I've had situations where students come and they just didn't even bother. They didn't really have a prepared piece ready. They just threw together something that they played in marching band. They just, they don't really know a scale. They're not strong in sight reading. Make sure you're prepared. Realize that's an audition. And I'm not a pacifying type person. I'm a straight talker and I'm gonna give it to you like you need it. Like I think you need it. Don't come in there and can't play. Like realize we're judging you. That's what an audition is. I'm judging you. I'm judging to see if you can play. I'm judging to see if your band director taught you how to play. If they taught you how to read. I'm judging all of that. And that audition, what happens in that audition determines how much money you end up paying for school. You can go to school for free, or you can pay your whole way. You can take loans and be paying on them for the rest of your life. So realize the importance of that. I think that was Dr. Brown that talked about the different types of different styles of music that you need to have. Always, and they've said lyrical. Some people don't know what lyrical means. I've learned that also. Lyrical is something pretty. I want to hear how pretty you sound. I want you to play something slow so I can see how you do phrases and just how everything flows, and just show me how beautifully you play. I want something technical. So it's going to be something fast, something where you really practice on something and your fingers are moving and things are really getting together, so I can see your technical ability. Know your scales and play them musically. Don't just come in and play a scale and just shoot up, shoot down. And everything has to be even. If you decide to play quarter notes, all of them should be quarter notes. If you decide to play half notes, on all of them should be half notes. Now, a B flat concert scale, that's not always true either. You should know that and people come through there and they fly through that. They play it at like 160 eighth notes or whatever, and it's super fast. But then we started getting into 4 or 5 sharps or something else, and then it's like whole notes. Whatever you start, that's how you finish. If your first scale is a quarter note scale, all of them are quarter note scales. If you play them at 120, all of them should be at 120. We're looking at all of that kind of stuff because, again, remember, you are training to be a professional musician. If you give a monkey a horn and you train them decently, they can play an instrument. You are training to be a professional musician. So make sure you come in there and you know what you're doing. And with sight reading, I'll tell you the truth. I've had a lot of students that couldn't read when I got them. They couldn't read at all, but they had their prepared pieces together. You have time, you know you have to do that, work on that prepared piece. They blew those prepared pieces out of the water. So when the sight reading came and they couldn't read, I was like, well, they showed me if they work on it, they can get it together. Let me help them out with school a little bit. I had students get really nice scholarships because they nailed those prepared pieces. They came in and they also looked presentable. That's another thing. Don't come in there with your gym shorts and your slides on because I'm judging you, because you're training to be a professional musician. Show me you want to be a professional musician. So I'm not saying you have to wear prom dress. I'm not saying that, but look presentable. Okay, I'll stop there because I know everybody else wants to say something.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore, preparing for a live audition and video audition, what are some things that they should include, especially if they're doing a video audition, or what are some things they should have for that live audition?
Yeah, so when it comes to auditioning, whether it's live or the video, one thing I think that's extremely important that I stress to all students. First, research what are the audition requirements for the school that you are going to audition for. Every school audition requirements are going to be different. And when you find out what those audition requirements are, stick to those requirements for that school. Do not go to that audition, whether live or virtual or video audition, and do something completely different, because the people listening to that audition is going to determine whether they are going to continue to pay attention or they're going to write you off. One of the main things I always tell high school band directors, do not send your students to me to do an audition live, virtual, or video playing marching band music. I don't want to hear them play whole notes and half notes, or how loud your trumpet player can play an A above the staff. That doesn't matter to me. I want to hear two pieces, one technical etude, something that's going to involve syncopation rhythm, something that's going to involve 8th note, 16th note, something that may be even a little bit quicker that the student has to play. And then I want to you play something very slow. I want to see how, can you do vibrato? Can you do lyrical? Can you do different dynamics? I want to hear things like that. So find out what are the audition requirements for this school so that you can know what you need to have to prepare for it. Then once you have those requirements, then practice. I tell a lot of students too, if you're worried about performing in front of people, get some of your friends to come sit down and then you perform your music directly in front of them. But treat it just like an audition, a one-stop shop. No restarts. As soon as you start, you got to finish. Learn to work through your mistakes the entire time. A lot of times, I tell all the directors in South Carolina, if you want me to come to your school to do mock auditions for your students, just email me. We'll set up a time that gives me an opportunity to, one, connect with the students, give them opportunities to know what they need to continue to work on before they do the actual audition. And a lot of times I go in and I'll sit down and I go, all right, here we go. You have 5 minutes. Let's start with your scales. Great. Bam. Okay, let's hear this piece. Let's hear this piece. Now, this is what I would do differently. This is the things I would ask you to work on. So when they come to do the actual audition, they know exactly what to do. Reach out to a lot of the college directors and see, can you come to their campus to do a mock audition? We're not evil people. We want you to come on our campuses. We want to see you. We want to help you because this is what we love to do. Whenever I get an email saying, hey, I have a student who's interested in coming to South Carolina State, but can they do this? They can't afford lessons. I'm still just like, you know what? Hey, can they get to the campus? No? Okay, great. I'm free during these days, these times. Can I come to your school? Can I work one-on-one with this student? We want to help. So contact those colleges, see, can you come in and do a visitation, or can they come to your school? All those things will definitely help. Definitely record yourself when you record your audition and listen back to it and be very critical. Don't play the game of, okay, I know I made a mistake, but nobody would notice. We will notice. We're professional musicians. We know what sounds good, what does not sound good. I fuss at my students all day, and they understand what sounds good and what doesn't. And then just make sure, again, like I said, you're prepared. And that will help you, whether it's a virtual audition, whether it's a live audition. When it comes to video auditions, don't make edits. We can tell when you are cutting and pasting and putting videos together. Okay, don't do that. Okay, we want to see the full raw footage, because again, we want to know where you are, so we can know how we can help you when you get here, so we can know where to start you off. Don't give a false pretense that you are a 10 when you're really at a 4. So because you're a 10 on that audition, I expect you to be a 10 when you come in when school starts. Okay, like Dr. Simon said, I can tell when you do that audition piece that you've practiced on for the last year very well, but then when I give you a sheet of just quarter notes and then you're just scratching your head and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. You know, I understand now where your level actually is. So just show us who you are, show us where you are, so we can help you start there and then build you up from that standpoint.
Indeed. Thank you. Dr. Brown, did you want to add anything to that in reference to like live and video auditions, especially for those who may be piano players? Like, is it a difference in if they don't have a baby grand piano or an upright piano? Is it okay for them to audition on a keyboard? And if so, what would you suggest for them to have a good audition? If they're going to do a video audition, I'm sure the live audition will have the equipment, but the video audition.
Okay, good point. I didn't think about that. Got a story for that. But to answer the first part of your question, I think most of my other colleagues have already kind of answered that. If you're doing a video audition, you can't make edits. What you can do is record your piece 7, 8, 9 times, maybe at different days. Go back and watch them all critically, decide which one is your best, and send that one unedited performance in. Of course, the live is different because you don't get do-overs, you don't get to stop and rewind, and you also have to deal with nerves from professional musicians who are judging you being right there in your face. So those are the differences to be careful with. However, when it comes to that video audition, if you do not have adequate equipment, find someone who does. Do not make the mistake that I did. When I was finishing my master's program at University of Houston, I only had 2 places I was interested in going for my doctorate. That was to Indiana University to study with Andre Watts, or to the Cincinnati Conservatory. And as a poor, broke graduate student, I didn't have any money to fly into these places. So I'm going to tell you what I did and date myself, because it was 2007, around January. I went to Radio Shack and I purchased a tape recorder, you know, those cassette tapes where you put in, and I put it in the practice room and I set it on the piano and I pressed record and play at the same time. And I really feel like I played my behind off. I really think it was a great performance. However, the quality of that tape recorder and of that practice room piano was not up to snuff for someone who was going to pursue a doctorate in music. So fortunately, my audition at Cincinnati was live and in person. So if you have to do that, don't do what I did. See if you can make a reservation in the recital hall at your college or university, at your high school maybe. If you have access to a church, maybe a friend or family member who's a pastor or in a music ministry, see if you can borrow the sanctuary for an hour to make your video and audio presentation to be as high quality as it can be. So yeah, let my mistake be your lesson.
May I chime in on that, please?
Of
Because I don't
course, of course.
if any parents or high school teachers are on the call, but if so, please hear me when I say this. Maybe Dr. Brock can have another webinar on what it takes to invest in your music majors and your music students, because it costs. It costs. And I know that all of us do not have it. I praise God for my mom, who made it happen. But what I wanted to say was these investments matter. So parents and teachers, listen, if you see all the work that they're doing, but they have faulty equipment, or they're not able to make quality recordings, or whatever, you have to remember these panels that get these recordings have never seen your student or your child. They don't know their talent outside of this recording that you're submitting. So you've got bandwidth issues, you've got all these issues. Now, luckily, you know, we've got technology now, like the more technological phones and iPhones and such have capabilities that we haven't had in the past. I'm with you, Dr. Brown, because I went through some of the same, but I was blessed because I had sponsors and donors and family and such, because I couldn't afford it either. And I took several trips to IU for lessons to try to get in and all that other stuff. So I get it. But yes, it is very, very important that that sacrifice is made. People who are at schools or universities or schools, get in touch with your telecommunications department. That's something that I took advantage of all the time, because they're supposed to be providing that service of helping you. I remember getting the radio station. They had equipment when I was an undergrad to record me for summer programs. I went in just into the little news station, radio station, and the microphone was better than what we had in my applied teacher's studio. So I was able to make a recording there. Local churches, if they support you, or if they support the school or the community, a lot of local churches have recording capability from their sound ministries. See if they can do it. And if you ask, they usually are willing to assist you. They usually are. And you'd just be surprised what you can get just by simply asking. If you cannot afford to do it yourself. Like I said, there are so many options available these days when it comes to quality recording. So I just highly suggest you look at that, because it is important.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you. And definitely about good equipment. I know my daughter right now is preparing to go to Winston-Salem, and she has 2 clarinets of her own, but to be a serious music major, I'm gifting her my buffet clarinet. She doesn't know it yet, but I'm gifting her my buffet clarinet so that she can have adequate equipment to study on when she gets there. She can't take it outside for the marching band, but she better have it for her applied lessons and for her other performances. But that will be, my investment. And I feel that is so important. Playing on a decent clarinet and a decent mouthpiece makes all the, difference in the world in your audition and in your performances. You feel better when you have better equipment to play on. Dr. Davenport, did you want to add about live or video auditions, and then we'll wrap up with our final few questions?
Yeah, one thing that, and this is for high school band directors that may be on the call, invest in at least getting one intermediate to advanced instrument in your program. Make it an audition instrument, because having a student come and audition on a poor quality instrument that they can't get a good tone out of or is out of tune affects how the person listening to them thinks they can play. Sometimes it's not the player, sometimes it's the equipment they're trying to play on. And that, happens with brass instruments as well. Some brass instruments, just certain notes are just built so far out of tune that it makes everything else sound bad. Or a student shows up playing on a 7C mouthpiece on trumpet, but you're trying to get a college scholarship, it affects your tone quality. And, real quick about when you play your scales, understand that not only are we trying to hear your proficiency of the scale, we're listening to your tone quality when you play it. And that's a big thing that you don't just rush through it. Making nice sonority when you play all the notes on the scale. And I think one thing the students really need to do is with the technology they have, go on YouTube, go somewhere and find out what a professional sound sounds like on the instrument that you intend to play, or what professional voices sound like, and have that understanding of what a professional sound sounds like and work towards it. Even when you're getting ready to audition. One good audition piece in most places is, if you are trying out for district band and those kind of things, keep those audition pieces. Generally, they are very good audition pieces for college. So to hold on to those, so as you go through 4 years of school, that gives you 4 different pieces that you could use in auditions. And sometimes they're lyrical and sometimes they're technical, but it's just good to really prepare for your auditions in that way.
Indeed. And definitely keeping those pieces. I encourage even students, whether you're vocal or instrumental, work out your nerves early. I would say, instructors, encourage your students to try out for honor bands every year, just for the experience. 1, to get the nerve down. 2, to get practice auditioning in front of someone, whether it be a blind or a live panel. And 3, being able to practice and have to play that caliber of music in a short period of time. So I encourage, those auditions, take your entire group at least once, or take your upper level group at least once, and require it and make it a performance assessment that they at least go. They don't have to make the ensemble, but just going for the experience, you'd be surprised. It helps curb performance anxiety. It also helps to encourage and help to give someone who may not have considered music as a possibility. You may have just now sparked an interest in someone because they made the ensemble, they enjoy the experience, and now you've cultivated another future musician or educator. Dr. Devine, we have talked a lot about instrument auditions. I know Dr. Brown has given us some insight into the piano auditions and what to do and what not to do when it comes to recording your audition. The voice is a little bit different. And there are some things, we're speaking and singing in multiple languages, yet 80% of our high school students are coming out with only have maybe touched one other language other than English coming out of high school, yet we expect them to know French, Italian, and German. What do you have to add in reference to live and video auditions and how to prepare for that as a vocalist?
Okay, so let me section off some of this. First of all, what I want to say, I'm not really certain when it comes to horns, when it comes environmental aspects. So what I'm trying to say is, if you are a Southerner and you go and you audition in New York in the spring, when auditions usually are, you're going from one climate to a totally different climate. If you are going from the Midwest to the South, where in the spring, at the end of the spring, where allergies run amok, you're going from one climate to another climate. My strongest suggestion, this comes from experience, and once again, I give all honor and glory to my mom, not just because she's on here, but I do, because there are certain things that you should do. Go a couple of days in advance, only so if you can, so that you can adjust to the climate. This is the thing. Instruments are external. When you're a vocalist, your instrument is internal. These tissues, muscles, tendons, and all those things that are housed in your larynx, which are housed in your throat, when they get irritated by unfamiliar climates or adverse allergies or drying out from the heat or whatever other crazy things are going on, they don't always cooperate with you. You may get to a place and find out that your vocal folds, I tell people all the time, your vocal folds are thinner than this sheet of paper. They inflame and you have no sound. Think about how quick you guys go hoarse. So imagine that for a singer, and they have to use that instrument to audition and they have no sound. And that's the worst. And so the one thing that I always recommend, if you can afford it, and if you can do it, try to get there a little early, because if you show up the day of and then you lose your voice in the car because of what's going on, you have a problem, and that's just the thing you have to put up with being a singer. I can't tell you how many steroid shots I've gotten because I've lost my voice, but those aren't always the healthiest thing to do, because steroid shots, just like Botox, they freeze what you have going on and they allow you to push through and sing, and then you're still sick. And it's still not the best audition. So those things matter. As far as languages are concerned, yes, it is good to have exposure to languages, but a lot of places do not provide exposure to language. This goes back to some of our curriculum in colleges, because a lot of our curriculum does not expose our education majors to as much language as they need. They need those, as you call it, the big three: French, Italian, and German. I have to say, at my HBCU, I really wasn't exposed to those languages, but because my family, and I was fortunate enough to be sent to various programs and overseas and study and such, I was able to grasp those languages. The good thing about it, if you do go on to graduate school or to mentorship programs or to clinics or ACDA or what have you, sometimes they have language workshops. And depending on what school you're at, you may be able to pick up those languages. But a lot of our schools do not have the Italian and the German. The foreign language requirement is usually Spanish, and it's fulfilled by that. And while they're, because my cognate in my doctoral program was Latin American music, which it did pay off for, usually that's not what the language that you need. So you get into these programs and you've got this advanced vocal diction, which is above your head, and our students are set back. I've seen this time and time again, and it's unfortunate. So in that case, you have to do it outside of where you are. I hate to pick on her, but I have a student on the call right now. Kennedy Snodgrass can attest to how hard I push the people in my studio because they have to grasp this information. And it's just not always available. But like I said, that goes back to how we're training our educators. If they don't have the information they need, how do we expect them to be able to teach the next iteration that comes to us? And that is the problem. That's the problem. So, you know, I do believe in immersing yourself in these cultures. Thank God I was able to live and go to school in those 3 big countries so that I could get immersed in that language. Because when you go on the stage, whether you're an individual or a group, your job is to make the people in that audience believe that you are a native speaker. That's what it is. You are supposed to make them believe that you speak that language. Think about, just to say this, when we hear foreigners sing spirituals and it sounds rough, we're sitting there like, wait, you know, this, because I've had that happen when I was studying in Austria, you know, and that's just because they don't know the dialect. They don't know the inferences. They don't know those things. It is our responsibility to learn what the composer asked us to know to execute their piece. And I just believe that that's what's supposed to happen. So my biggest thing is with voice, vocal health is paramount. That's the first thing I teach. I teach vocal health. I teach that when you're drinking that water, like I tell people all the time, that water that you're throwing back, that doesn't touch your vocal folds. That has nothing to do with what you use to talk or speak. It's mental. That tea that you think is curing, if tea got to your vocal folds, you would choke and die. So it's just, it doesn't touch. I hate to tell you, that stuff doesn't touch your vocal folds. It does not. It would kill you if it did. So it's like, you know, if you don't know these things, what it is hydration. Hydration is what helps you. If you hydrate way before when you need it and you hydrate properly, you will be fine. You will be fine. So there are just some things we don't know, some things traditionally that we learn that are not always on the up and up or correct, but preparation is key. Preparation is just key.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you. We're wrapping up and we're coming to the last part of this. We've talked about just what it means to be a music major, what it means to what entry-level requirements we have to get into a department or a school of music. We've talked about how to prepare for a live and video audition. And as we've done this, a lot of our panelists have talked about general performance expectations, the fact that as a performance major, you have to perform. As an educator, you have to perform. I want to shift now and talk about the things that we need to have as early discussions, as early as freshman orientation, and that's capstone requirements. A capstone requirement is your be-all, end-all, is your summative assessment to say that you are fit and ready to go into the field and represent yourself as a professional musician, represent your university as a graduate of that institution and a product of that department, and that you're ready to go out and instill this knowledge upon other people, whether you're teaching them or whether you're performing and entertaining them or a combination of the two, or whether you're producing someone's next hit record. So, couple of things to know. As a major, you're expected to perform. Now, of course, you know, in my upcoming webinars this year, I'll be talking about revamping the curriculum and the need to have more relevant capstone projects that actually mirror what you're going to be doing in the profession and how to open that up. But for now, all of us are expected under the Western Conservatory method to perform a junior and or senior recital. Of course, education majors perform the senior recital. Sometimes performance majors are required to perform both a junior and a senior recital, with the junior recital being slightly shorter in length and amount of material than the senior recital. However, in addition to this, you have what's called gateway exams or gateway assessments. For our education majors, you have, in some states, you have the Praxis Core exam. Some people are calling it the Praxis Case exam, which measures your basic skills in math, reading, and writing. This is nothing but the graduated SAT. Many people will encourage you to take this or not tell you about this exam until junior year, when in essence, you should take it in freshman orientation as an entrance exam to your program. I'm a firm advocate that our schools need to use the Praxis assessment in lieu of your math and English placement exams if you're planning to be an education major, because it tests the same things. Two, you're coming fresh off of taking the SAT and or ACT out of high school. So what better way to go right back into a similar test? Go ahead and get it out the way. And that's one less thing to worry about. You must pass the Praxis Core case exam in many of our HBCUs or many of our schools across the country to get into the education program, which is your upper level courses that you take junior and senior year. So how is it that you're just finding out about this exam junior year when you need to get into the classes junior year? We've just put our students back a semester or more from graduating. We need to give them the info when they come to freshman orientation and they indicate on the form that they have a desire to major in music education. When they're going around from department to department in financial aid, one of those stops needs to be to the music department to have a meeting with those students and their families to say, hey, this is everything you need to know about being in this major. This is how much you're expected to perform. These are the exams you're expected to take. You're expected to student teach, before you get out. It should not be a need to know basis. They need to have all the info to inform their decision, because as Dr. Simon said, it can make the difference between whether someone is helping to fund your education or whether you're paying for it on your own. And when I'm paying for my education, I want to know that my money is not being wasted. I want to know that I'm going to get out of school when I expect to get out of school, and I don't want to be blindsided. And our students today are being blindsided. Not knowing is not an excuse. And a lot of the times, sometimes we face the issue that some of our professors don't know what's required outside of their cognate, outside of their offices. It's important for you to be well informed so that you can inform your current and future students and give them accurate info. So the Praxis Core or Praxis Case for education majors will be required as a gateway for entry into your upper level courses to actually become a candidate to, a teacher candidate. Before then, you're just a music major. But to become a teacher candidate, you have to be admitted into the education program. And then to get out of the program, you take your summative assessment, which is your Praxis 2 subject area or your GACE assessment, your MTTC, your MTCE, your ABCDEFG. It doesn't matter what letter you have it. I'm going to tell you, as a Praxis consultant and one who's helped over 250 people pass their exams, it doesn't matter what name the test has on it, the content is exactly the same. The practice test they give you for the Texas test is almost similar to what they give you for the Praxis and the GACE. So it's the same content, just different category names and different percentage weights. And then there's a different cut score based on whether your test is housed by the ETS or housed by Pearson. So either you have a percentage raw score, or you're going to have a score to pass at the induction level or a score to pass at the professional level. Other than that, the tests are exactly the same, no matter where you are in the country. And you have to have these basic skills for many of our schools in order to be released to student teach. And then, of course, ultimately to be released to graduate and get a full license. The days of provisional license and temporarily licensed is going to come to an end, or it's going to be harder to do so. The alternative route to certification is an alternative route. It doesn't mean it's a bypass, though. It does not mean that you can get past passing these assessments. If you want to be an educator, you have to pass the licensure assessments to be fully licensed. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But as I mentioned, all of this information needs to be disclosed to students and their families in freshman orientation. Even disclose it in an open house when you're talking about your department, you're presenting, and they want to know about your degree programs. Disclose this information early and communicate about it often. So those are your capstone requirements, your recitals, and your exams that you have to take. Some of our schools have started to allow you to do projects in lieu of an exam. So if you're a commercial music major or you're a sound and recording or a business major, they may allow you to put together a capstone project in which you had to produce the music that's being performed, or you had to put together some type of project that matches what you would have learned in your program. But not all of our schools have adopted that policy yet, and it's still traditionally recital, student teaching, exam. So with that, my question is, looking at recitals, looking at the importance of recitals in juries, and getting into the program, the importance of not being a no-show when it comes time for the end of the semester juries, the importance of not waiting until the marathon recital to go on the stage and getting on the recitals early and often. I would like for my professors to talk just briefly about what to expect as far as your capstone requirements. And you can even talk about the capstone at your institution and be specific, but let's talk just briefly, maybe 2 or 3 minutes per person, about capstone requirements to get out of the major, starting with Dr. Brown.
Well, you've already mentioned all the various exams. Praxis 1 and Praxis 2 are required for our music education students, but they also have to do the recital. Our general music students have to do a recital, and for us, that's 50 to 60 minutes satisfies a recital. Our music business concentration students do not have to do a recital at all. So their capstone is an internship experience, very similar to student teaching, except we put them with a symphony or with a rock band or at a radio station or a studio, and they're spending 10 to 15 hours a week doing whatever is asked of them, combining the skills they learn in the classroom, whatever skills they're learning in that particular subset of the music industry. And they're writing reflection papers. They're building an e-portfolio of their experience and how it all ties together. So the music business students are our one group that does not have to do the recital. At Winston-Salem State, we also do not require a junior recital. It is recommended. However, at this point, we have not required it. What we do is we require students to perform in at least one music seminar per semester. And most schools have those where students typically perform 1 or 2 pieces based on what's been recently studied in their applied lessons. So the expectation is that they would perform 1 minimum per semester. And by the time they're ready for their senior recital, they are used to being on stage in front of their peers and in front of their faculty. Most of our faculty go above and beyond that minimum of 1 and require students to do 3 per semester and a different piece each time. So I think that's gradually helping them be prepared.
Indeed, because I know some that have the recital, they'll say, well, you can take one thing from each year and use it as part of one of your recitals. So it's helping you to build your library and build your repertoire list while also learning some brand new material that they have not heard before. So you're building your portfolio as you go. Okay, thank you. Dr. Davenport, did you want to add about capstones?
Well, us having a performance major, of course, that's what our students do, perform. That's their capstone project, is their senior recital. But we also require our students each semester to perform at least 1 piece on seminar every semester. Only semester that we don't require it is the first semester of college, so that they are able to build up the fundamentals and really have an understanding of the instrument before they start performing. So it's important that they get a chance to perform as often as possible on that stage, so they're used to being on stage. And we also too try to take some of the music that they play through seminars and allow them to use some of that on that senior recital as well. So that kept it playing. Like I said, playing it, once again, music's a put up or shut up profession. That's how you're gonna get out, is you're gonna prove what you learned while you were there and show us that you're prepared to go out as a professional into the field.
Thank you. And Dr. Moore, would you like to add anything to that as it relates to the capstone?
Yeah, so I'll say, so when I was an undergrad, it was required that you had to perform, whether you were music ed, music performance, music business, a BA in music, you were required to perform every time, at least twice during recital hour that we have each week. And that's kind of the philosophy that I, definitely ingrained in me and what I have now. Here at South Carolina State, if you are music ed, you still have to do a recital, and then you will do your student teaching. If you are music industry, you still have to do a recital, but your recital can include a product of things that you will do in the industry field, whether it's production, working lighting, and other things of that nature as well too, and present it almost in like a lecture format, and then the students still do an internship. Now, my students, if you're in my studio as a percussion major, you cannot pass private lessons without performing in recital hour at least twice in a semester. So you can come to every single lesson, you can do great, but if you don't perform twice in the semester recital hour, you're not going to pass lessons no matter what. And the reason for that is being a percussionist, you have to perform on so many different instruments. You have so many different areas of music that you have to try to hone in. So whether you, again, are going to do performance, education, industry, I want to ensure that you have a full background to demonstrate all of those capabilities to an audience. So by the time you get to your senior year, you will have performed and did so many other things in your specialized area that it's just secondary nature to you. So you get rid of the nerves, you have a understanding, you've built a repertoire, and you've built that music curriculum within yourself, so that you can not only perform it, but you can also speak about it. Because like Dr. Davenport says, hey, you can't talk around it. You got to showcase exactly what you're doing. That we push for all of our students, and we do some other things to help kind of guide them along the way. But yeah, that recital and internship, recital, student teaching, and then all the generalized performing that the students do throughout their time in school is what are generalized the capstone and requirements in order for them to graduate.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Devine or Dr. Simon, would you like to add anything to the capstone requirement?
Okay, so music ed majors have to do a senior recital and an internship. Music performance majors have to do a junior recital and a senior recital. Music business concentration has to do an internship. Piano pedagogy has to present a recital. General music does not have a capstone. Commercial music will have a project that is required. Sacred music has to perform a junior and senior recital, and music theater has a recital, senior recital. Also, in addition to that, recital attendance is required every semester for 7 semesters. And then there's a noon recital hour every Wednesday. You must participate on, if you are in applied lessons, you have to participate on 2 per semester, and you must complete a jury at the end of the semester for a successful grade. I think I've covered everything. So we currently have the 5 concentrations standing. The 3 go up in front of ASCC, our standards committee, in August. So then we'll have 8 concentrations with the Bachelor of Music.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you. And for those that are not familiar with the jury is basically your summative assessment where you're to showcase the techniques and the talents that you've learned in your applied lessons and some of the things that you have prepared for your recitals. They may ask you to play that again or ask you to play things that you've been working on. The goal is to show growth. It may be a dialogue in between you and the panel to talk about the composer, the history of the piece. You may be asked vocabulary to make sure that you know also how to comprehend and analyze the works that you're studying as well, and not just mechanically play them, but be musical and understand how to correctly interpret them. That is your final exam, so to say, for your applied lessons in many cases. So it's very important that you take your jury seriously and that you do not have the marking of NS or no show for your juries, because that in essence is your final exam. And you don't want to fall into that habit, because all of those experiences prepare you for the big day or the big stage of performing your capstone requirement or your capstone recital. Dr. Simon, did you want to add? And then we'll go to our very last question.
Yeah, just something really quickly. At Mississippi Valley, we only have the 2 concentrations, education and performance. So it's pretty much the same. And our department is really lenient in how we do our capstone projects. We still have the performances every semester for studio different things, different seminar requirements. But it's all left up to the studio teacher. And I think that actually works out to my benefit anyway. And we enjoy doing that, because what I do the freshman year, when they come in, that I ask them, what do you want to do with this degree? Like, what do you plan on doing? You know, and those answers range for a lot of things. Now they have to learn how to do everything in my studio. They have to learn how to do everything, because you never know what's going to happen. I was sure I was going to be an orchestral clarinet player. I was sure of it. Everything I did, like orchestral excerpts, I wanted to be a professional clarinet player. And so it was geared toward that. That is not what happened. When I graduated from undergrad, I ended up being on the road for a year playing saxophone. You know, saxophone was my secondary, and I had to learn a lot of stuff on the road, I had to learn a lot of stuff. So that prepared me for when I got ready to teach. My students know how to do everything. I just had a student come through. She wants to be a professional saxophone player. Everything we did geared her to be a professional saxophone player. Because when I graduated, it was like I did studio work with an artist, and they were like, I want you to play that solo in the color orange. You know, and it's like, I don't know what that means. But because of my training, when I asked her to sing what orange was, orange to her was singing in major. Like it was a piece in major. So I knew that because of theory. I knew that because we went over that kind of stuff in studio class. So I try and make sure everything that they do is geared toward that. So that's what works for us. So whatever they want to do when they graduate, that's what their capstone is. I try and make sure that that happens.
Indeed. Thank you so much. As we come to our last question, I want to leave a few nuggets with you. So as a music major, as you approach your junior year, and as we said at the beginning of the call, Dr. Simon mentioned it, Dr. Brown mentioned it, Dr. Moore mentioned it, Dr. Davenport mentioned it as well as Dr. Devine and her experiences. You are becoming a professional, whether it's a professional educator, professional musician. So you have to think in terms of a professional. By your junior year, you should have a website. You should have a business card. You should have a headshot. And you should have a working portfolio, because as musicians and music educators, our portfolios are always being updated. Our CVs are always being updated. Our resumes are always being updated. So it's a working document, because you're always going to make changes to it, because music is infinite, as such as our careers. So you definitely want to make sure that you're setting up your professional toolbox way before graduation. You should have, if you have a social media page, clean up your social media. Clean up what you have on your social media. Have a social media page that is a professional social media page to build your portfolio, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever you have. Make sure you have a professional page to showcase and market yourself long before you graduate, because you're not just graduating from your institution to get a job. You're competing against thousands of others who are graduating at the same time as you, looking for the same position. So you want to be in a position where you're marketable as well. You want to definitely make sure that you consider, if you're considering advanced studies and graduate school, that you have these conversations with your advisor, your applied instructor, your mentor long before graduation. You should be preparing for your graduate school audition or interview as early as junior year. You want to make sure that some of the repertoire that you're starting to perform and things that you're performing as your senior recital, that should almost be your marketing tool, or you should almost be able to reproduce that and edit it and prepare that to be your graduate school entrance level audition. So you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in positions to go to the next level. I have a lot of colleagues of mine who graduated from undergrad, went to grad school, and they had to be admitted on a conditional status. One, because they didn't take their undergraduate training seriously. They barely performed or just made it by. They faked it until they made it to get through the recitals, or the material or literature or repertoire that they were playing on the level was not at the caliber to meet the entry-level requirements of a first-year graduate student in that concentration as a serious performance major. So make sure, again, like Dr. Moore said, and Dr. Brown said it as well, research those graduate school websites. Look at what's being required early, so that you can have this conversation with your advisors and applied instructors. I'm interested in graduate school. I'm looking at these top 5 schools. These are the audition requirements. Can we work on preparing me for this in our applied lessons? In my recitals, can we start preparing this material so that I can be successful when I do this entrance audition? You want to make sure that you have a seamless pipeline from undergraduate to grad school, or undergraduate to that professional audition. I wish that Mr. Banks could have been here with us tonight, because one of the things I wanted to target with him was the fact of being a professional musician and playing with people like Fantasia or TLC. and what that took and being ready and the tools that you need to have to go to those auditions. Things like arriving early, as Dr. Devine said, to check out the venue that you're auditioning for so that you know what the setup is like, you know what the sound quality is like, you know what type of reverb you're dealing with so that you can adjust accordingly. You know what the temperature is going to be like. So you want to make sure that you're prepared early for those types of things. Don't wait until the last minute, spring semester, senior year to decide you may want to go to graduate school. It's better to have and be prepared and then delay your entry than to want to go right in there and not have a clue of what you're supposed to be doing. So those are some things I suggest to have in your professional toolbox. As part of an upcoming webinar, we'll talk about what's next, life after graduation. Dr. Devine?
I have one thing I want to add, and I don't know if this is wise for instrumental, but this is something that really helped me and helped a lot of my colleagues. I suggest that you, if you can, schedule private lessons with the teachers that you might be considering in the grad program, especially if it's a grad program of high esteem. I did that a lot with my IU auditions, and I did it with my Manhattan auditions, and so on, and my UNCG auditions and such. If you establish a rapport with them, they remember you when you walk in that door. And also, they sometimes will waive your pre-screeners. I had gotten all my pre-screens waived for my master's auditions, just to that fact. I know it's a little bit more of an investment, but you actually get to see if you want to work with that person too. Because surprised what you learn after a lesson. You may decide, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be with that person, but it's a really good idea.
Exactly. That's just like being an athlete and coaching or going into an interview for a job. And again, that's for another webinar too. Not only are you being interviewed for a job when you go, you're also interviewing them. Every gig isn't a good gig. I know I've turned down some gigs because it may not be the best fit for you, for your family. You may not be ready for that type of environment. Same thing with the graduate schools. If you're not sure that your personality is going to match with the person you may be studying with, you may want to shop around and take lessons so that you know that that's going to be a good fit for you academically. That's going to be a good fit for you morally. I had a client who had withdrew from a university because they were being discriminated against by their applied instructor and not given the tools for success because of the color of their skin or because of the undergraduate program that they came from. So it's very important that you shop around and that you find the school or find the fit that's best for you and that you take those lessons early, even if that means enrolling in that one credit course as a non-degree seeking student, because that instructor may want to be paid for those services. So if you enroll in the course and pay for it, then of course they'll be more willing to work with you. Some will do it for free, but consider that as an option, which is what Dr. Devine was saying, as an investment, investing your future. Something as simple as $200 to $500 to make it to that $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 that you're going to make later is worth the investment. Okay. As we wrap up, I would like to give everyone a chance to give their closing words, but I want to open for a quick Q&A session. Panelists, if you don't mind, we will do a quick 3-minute Q&A session. I have some comments in the chat from Facebook that I want to share with you. And then we can talk if there are any questions in the chat, and then I'll let everyone do a quick wrap up. Here's one question. Has the panel noticed any incline or decline in the number of music majors over the years? If so, what has caused the fluctuation in the panel's opinion? And of course, we know in addition to COVID. So if anyone wants to chime in and answer that question, this is coming from Mr. Eddie Evans. And before you answer, I would say shout out to Mr. Evans, who has agreed to help anyone in the DMV area, I believe, or anyone to record your auditions. So he's willing to do that. So I will put his contact information out. He's put it on Facebook. I'll put it here on Zoom, but he's willing to help record your auditions. So if anyone wants to answer the question, have we seen an incline or decline and what has caused it?
I'll say one thing. From auditioning students over the last 2 years since coming out of COVID, I have noticed that there has been a decline of students who want to be a music education major. And one of the things I ask students, particularly ones that I feel are very talented with their auditions, why would they not consider music? Generally, the answer has been, well, you can't make any money being a musician, or you can't make any money being a music teacher, or they've looked and seen that teachers in this area only make this amount of money and I can't live off of that amount of money. So why would I want to go into that as a major? That has been the biggest thing that I've heard. Or the students' parents believe that they can't make it as being an actual musician or being an actual music teacher.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I've actually seen quite a few students come in other majors and then want to change over to music because they got discouraged by their parents about, you know, you need to be a business major, you need to be this major, when they actually had the passion to be a music major. And, you know, they changed their majors, but now they're a year behind because they came into college under another major, you know. From the other side of it, I think it's important for us as music professors to take a good, get a good analysis of students coming into our programs and be willing to tell a student whether or not they have what it takes to be a successful music major in their freshman year. So they have time to go change that major and get into something else. We see it very early on whether or not they really have what it takes to be a good major.
Indeed, indeed. Like I said, there have been a number of things that have caused increases and declines in music. A lot of it sometimes is seeing what's around you, having positive music educators, even on the K-12 level. If you have a revolving door of educators, why would I want to be a music educator? If I have a music educator that comes to work every day like they're stressed out and just doesn't like their job, we radiate that energy. So if we radiate positive, we radiate, that we actually have an avocation for our vocation or a love for what we do, others will want to do the same thing. Okay, so definitely that has been it. Money has been another thing as well. And then just the requirements, being able to see that there's an end game to this, seeing that are you actually graduating people from your department? That deters people when they don't want to be trapped for 6, 7, 8 years trying to get out of a degree program. So, I mean, you have to tell the truth and tell the whole truth. We don't just want to put it on the students. We want to put it on what we're doing as departments as well. Are we making our departments attractive to attract majors? Are we getting out from behind our desks and going into this field and recruiting future educators, musicians, business professionals in the music industry? Are we welcoming when they get there, or are we just chalking them up to being members of the band and choir? So it's very important. And again, telling the whole truth, because that's important to, so you want to be a music major. If I find that my department is cold and I find that no one is ever approachable, I could have just went and continued to major in biology like I started to do, so or if I can't see, if you can't give me a clear answer as to why I'm not progressing in this field when I know I'm doing everything that's being asked of me, that sometimes can deter people from the profession. And then that open lines of communication. You blindside me about these exams, I'm going to change the interdisciplinary studies and get out of school.
May I add something too? I mean, and this is amongst us professors, and I must say this, there has to be an overlap in our coursework too, especially for the praxis. What I see, and I'm not speaking directly because I'm just meeting well, but what I see is that we do not have consistency in our coursework. The praxis has to be prepared for when they walk in the door, not at the junior and the senior year. That's where a lot of the problem is. I am so thankful and grateful for Dr. Brock, because within 2 weeks, she helped one of my private students get to a point he had not even been at. And unfortunately, that same student has now changed his major to general music because he's tried so many times and so hard. What I see though, is that we're not getting them at the door. We're not getting them at the door. You hear this, Kennedy? We're not getting them at the door. We have to get them from when they walk in and make sure that it is consistent. That praxis information, that GACE information, whatever information it is. When I took the praxis, that's what I realized. And I realized that I was like, we should have been doing this from the beginning, not in the senior year in workshops on Fridays. That's not going to help and get them to get where they need to be. Also, I also firmly believe this because the dynamic is changing. I feel that experience in other organizations is paramount, especially if you're a performance person. You know, if we have them in this, we're just going to keep you in choir, in this one choir, or we're going to keep you in this one band and not expose you to other things that are in the music world. We're not really being honest on our end about how you can actually be marketable once you leave this institution. We need to give them the tools. I'm not saying that we can guarantee their success, but we should at least give them the tools that they need so that they can have a fighting chance against somebody who goes to a school that might have more resources. And I mean, and that's just from you being a devoted teacher or a good advisor, or given the correct information, you know? So I think it's just very, very important that we as faculty, as professors, as people in these departments work together to make sure we're giving them the best opportunity that they can have in passing these benchmarks and such.
Indeed. And I will say that Dr. Devine just answered the reason that Mr. Evans asked that question. He said that he asked because he came in as a music education major over 20 years ago and was persuaded to change the major to chase more money. I'm going to speak to advocating and being an advocate for your department too, and not allowing professors in other departments to deter your students from chasing this as a real major. So not just from the family influences or family, well, I want you to do this, or I'm only paying for your education if you're majoring in X, Y, and Z, because that does happen. But what about colleagues who are deterring students from the major? What about administrators who are deterring students from the major? So definitely to the idea of chasing more money, we have to show our students how they can be marketable in any degree track. That's the whole purpose for us having a degree track, is so that our students that we're preparing can make the money they want to make and can learn how to have multiple streams of income doing the one thing that they love and using it to max out to their fullest potential. So definitely there. I did not see any additional questions in the chat from Zoom or Facebook. So we're going to go to our closing so that we can keep this right at the 2-hour limit that I wanted to have. So in our closing, I'm going to give all of our panelists on the call the opportunity to make one final push for being a music major and also giving a push for their institution or their respective programs. So anything that you want to use while you have the platform, because I know we're all still in the recruiting stages too. So I'm going to start in reverse order. So I'll start with Dr. Devine and work my way around. Your closing statement.
Encourage, no matter where you go, follow your dreams. If your heart is in music, the gift will make way for the giver. Listen, you will make a way. I remember there was a group on Facebook called I'm majoring in music, so I'll live in a paper box. Do not believe the hype. Don't believe it. You can be successful. I mean, Alabama A&M, as I said, we are in a rebirth mode, as our president calls it. You know, we have a whole Bachelor of Music that as of January 2024 will have 8 concentrations, excuse me. So you get to choose everything from music education, performance, piano pedagogy, general, music theater, commercial music, sacred music, and I'm missing something. I don't know, music business. So you have those options. It is a great place to be, a beautiful campus, a wonderful faculty. A lot of our faculty are young and we're progressing under the leadership of a new president. But even if you do not choose Alabama A&M, if music is in your heart, you can email me, call me, find me on Facebook. I will give you as much advice and direction as I possibly can. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Devine. Dr. Brown, if you could give your closing statement.
Let's see, my closing statement would be a line from a movie. Sister Act 2, once again, I'm dating myself, but in the movie, Whoopi Goldberg said to Lauryn Hill's character, I think the book was Letters to a Young Poet. If you wake up in the morning and you can't think of nothing but singing first, you're supposed to be a singer. So I say that for anyone who feels like music is so much a part of you that you literally cannot function without creating, consuming, conducting, composing. If that's who you're supposed to be, figure out a way to make it work. You can't just be passionate. You can't just be talented. You have to be disciplined. You have to work for this. Don't come to college being a music major thinking you're not going to do anything with music beyond what you already know. that defeats the purpose of coming to college. The professors who care about you, we are going to stretch you. We're going to challenge you, and we're probably going to work your last nerves. And it's because we see the potential. But if that's really what you want to do, a living can be made. You can make a living selling strawberries if you figure out who your market is and how to do it right. So I encourage you to network. Sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know and who knows you and who can break those doors down to help you get where you need to be. So be encouraged. If you need me, feel free. Again, as our previous panelist said, look me up, email me, call me, find me on LinkedIn, social media, and I can answer any additional questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Dr. Moore, your closing statement.
Yeah, I would say any student who thinks that they want to be a music major, particularly if you're in high school now, start going ahead and researching all the things that it takes for you to be a music major. Start looking into all the things that's going to help you develop your craft as being a professional musician, and work hard at it. Don't just think that you, just like Dr. Brown said, that you know everything. Be open to new experiences. Be willing to want to learn. Again, we are in a technology phase now where you can literally go to your computer, or your phone, and say one thing and it'll automatically pop up. Look into every single thing that will allow you to be that professional musician that you believe that you want to do, and practice. Believe in yourself and practice. Don't get discouraged because everything's not going to go right the first time around when you go through it. We can all tell you that multiple times. We all have that experience, whether we're in a practice room or even in the business aspect. But you've got to just make sure you continue to push through and believe in yourself, and find people who can give you the knowledge and things that you're going to need that's going to allow you to be that professional musician. And as always, like everyone said, feel free to contact me at any point in time. I'm willing to talk, answer questions, and assist in any kind of way that I can. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Dr. Simon, your closing statement.
All right. So one thing I would like to have students think of when you're getting ready to go to school to be a music major, be open to constructive criticism. That seems to be like my biggest hurdle in my studio. And I even think back to when I went to my undergrad, like I've been first chair everywhere I've been. So I obviously know how to play. And then I got to college and realized I was doing everything wrong. My embouchure was wrong. My hand placement was wrong. And my teacher would tell me all the time, you know, fix your embouchure, fix your fingers, fix your hands, sit up straight, do this, do that. And I just, you know, at the beginning, I just didn't, you know, I wasn't there yet. But be open to constructive criticism from your professors. They obviously know what they're doing. And most of us, the vast majority of us have your best interest at heart. And we want you to be better because you're also a reflection of us. So if you're not great, then we're not great. So be open to constructive criticism because we want you to be better.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simon. And Dr. Davenport, your closing statement.
First of all, I want to acknowledge that my new choir director has been on this call the entire time. Mr. Richard Odom has actually been up here the entire time. And I'm just excited to be working with him. Several things. One, follow your passion. If your passion, if you're getting up every day and all you think about is music and developing your instrument, then do that. Don't be discouraged. Don't chase the money. There are a lot of millionaires that commit suicide because they're unhappy. Do what you love and what makes you happy. Number two, don't be thin-skinned. Music is not a degree for the thin-skinned. You know, you got to be determined to get better at your craft. And you have to wake up every day with that determination that you're gonna get better. And we as professors are here to help you get better. Go somewhere, do your college tours, go somewhere where you have a field that people care about you where you are. That's the beautiful thing about HBCUs. We were created to care about and build up the self-esteem of our students. Find a school that matches your passion, that's willing to push you and hold you accountable for learning what you need to learn, and go somewhere where you're going to be comfortable. Once again, like everyone else has said, you can reach out to me anytime. I will mentor anyone that is interested in music. I've been doing it for a long time. Somebody say they were old, really? I graduated in 1980. Let's leave that out there. But reach out, get a mentor. That's a good thing to do. If you're a high school student, get a mentor, a college professor that's willing to lead you to a path, willing to encourage you, and then go after your dreams. Don't let anybody else discourage you from going after your dreams.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Brown, will we get like a contact list of the panelists that are on here, just so we can like maybe possibly stay in touch or something?
That
Of
works.
course you will. Of course you will. And those that are on the call, be it Zoom or Facebook, I will also share the contact information for our panelists with you. So just give me about a day and I'll get all of that wrapped up as I edit the video as well. So yes, you will be able to keep in contact and you'll be able to reach out to those lifelines. And Professor Odom, I will be contacting you as well so that we can bring you into the loop as well and incorporate some things as we move forward. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening for So You Want to Be a Music Major. This was my teaser for my second Tuesdays webinars that will be starting the second Tuesdays in August as part of my 2023-2024 professional development series. The goal this year is to provide relevant and practical professional development and to provide those real talk situations to help strengthen our music departments, to help strengthen our candidates, and to adequately prepare you for life after graduation, be it going into the career field or going into advanced study. We want to make sure you have all the tools to foster the conditions of success. So if you have any questions, especially if you are a teacher candidate, a music major, a provisionally or temporary or emergency licensed teacher, and you are struggling with your certification exams, please reach out to me. I know that there are many people out here that can help prepare you for your exams, but I do stand by my pass rate. I do stand by my methods. And I'm pleased to announce that while there are workbooks on the market, most of them are geared towards Praxis Core. Most of them are geared towards some of the more common Praxis 2 subject exams. I have written my own Praxis or music teacher certification workbook. It is complete and it will be on the market. So I'll make the official announcement tomorrow. But for those who are looking, it is a comprehensive workbook. So it includes your sections and activities and worksheets throughout the workbook to help you master the content and a full-length practice exam at the end with listening. So that workbook is called Get Certified: Conquering Whatever Exam You Have, and it will be available for the Praxis, the entire Praxis series. It will also be available for GACE. And because I said a lot of the content is similar, when I put out the other book, it'll cover the other certification exams. The only thing that will be different in your exams will be some of the names and the category weights for your categories, but music history is history. Theory and composition is composition. Performance, instructional pedagogy, technology, world music, listening, conquering listening questions, all of that is the same. If you're interested in my one-on-one or small group tutoring sessions, or if you're interested in my 3-day Praxis or teacher certification exam boot camps, definitely reach out to me. I do have a virtual camp happening in August 17th through 19th, and we have some in-person camps coming this year too. Don't sit back and just struggle through these exams, because people are paying mortgages now to try to pass these exams. The price has went up. I believe now the registration is somewhere between $150 and $170 per test session. So if you don't want to spend close to $1,000 that you could have used for a night out on the town or used to provide for your family, definitely reach out to me so that you can get the tools that you need to adequately prepare for your exams. Like I said, there are many people out there, but I do stand by my product and I do stand by my advocacy to help diversify our teaching field. I work with all institutions, large and small, but I do have an affinity for my HBCUs. So I do promote and advocate for certifying HBCU students and graduates. So again, thank you so much for your time. If you are looking for your professional development certificate, I will have those ready on Friday. I just need your email address, so drop it in the chat on Zoom or Facebook, and you will have your certificates on Friday for your professional development points. I am an approved CEU provider, so it should be accepted in many of your school districts. If you have a question or your school district wants to contact me, I can provide my business license and my EIN number. So thank you again for joining us, And I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Have a great evening, everyone.